Howdy folks, hope you're all having a great weekend, and today, rather than another episode of Communist Revolutionary Simulator 6, and since this game has just come out and I have been looking forward to it, I'm going to be taking a look at Jurassic World Evolution 2. Since its release, I have sunk quite a few hours into this, although I have by no means mastered it yet. And along the way, I've picked up a couple of hints that will hopefully help you get started and avoid running into some of the issues, because there are some issues that I ran into along the way. First and foremost, don't waste your time playing the campaign. I know that sounds like a bit of a shocker, but it is actually a tiny part of the game. In effect, the campaign is actually more of a tutorial, an extremely long, extended, and thoroughly dull and boring tutorial. They have actually spent some money on the campaign though, which is kind of weird, considering how inconsequential it is to the actual gameplay. They hired Bryce Dallas Howard to reprise the role of Claire Dearing from the Jurassic World movies. They couldn't quite afford to pay Chris Pratt to do the voice lines for Owen Grady, but they got somebody in who does a reasonably good job of impersonating him. If you absolutely must do the campaign, however, and honestly doing it isn't going to hurt you, then I do have one very strong recommendation that you would do well to follow in order to avoid having to restart the campaign missions or go back to earlier saves. If you look down in the bottom right corner of the screen, here we're doing the very first campaign mission in Arizona. It follows straight on from the events of Jurassic World 2, where the dinosaurs are now free in North America, and we're rounding up dinosaurs in various different US states. Do exactly what the game tells you to do. No more, no less, just what the game tells you to do. Don't try to second guess what's coming up, thinking that you can save yourself some time by doing some research early or building some facilities early. The game isn't going to like it. And you will be sorry. Let me give you an example. At one point while playing through the campaign, I was saddled with the task of healing a dinosaur that had suffered a major injury. There's a new facility in Jurassic World Evolution 2 called the Paleomedical something or other. Basically, it's a surgery for dinosaurs. In order to fix the problem, you first have to send out a ranger team to sedate the dinosaur, then you send out a helicopter to transport it to your medical facility. At that point, you assign some scientists to work on the dinosaur's health, and once it's been cured, you then have to assign another helicopter to transport it from the medical facility back to its enclosure. It is vitally important that you do things in that precise order, and you do it only when the game tells you to. What happened to me was that we took delivery of a large theropod with a broken leg. I immediately knew that it was going to need treatment, so I sent a capture team over to sedate it and transport it to my paleomedical facility, where my scientists immediately got to work on fixing its broken leg. At that point, the game told me, now you need to go and sedate this dinosaur and transport it to your paleomedical facility. I'd already done that, of course. I thought no big deal. Once the dinosaur was healed, I then used the transport helicopter to take it back, dropped it off at its enclosure, and the second it touched down, the game thought, wait, hang on, that's not right. You're supposed to sedate it and take it to the paleomedical facility. Oh, what's going on? And crashed. Twice. Every time I tried to proceed from that point, from the earlier save. So I had to completely restart the campaign mission and not do anything that the campaign wasn't telling me to do. So, yeah. Just a little warning. You can skip the campaign completely, of course. It is kind of really just a tutorial, and it's not very interesting. The meat and bones of the game lies elsewhere, and is definitely worthwhile. Here from the main menu we have a number of options. The campaign we've already looked at and largely dismissed, even though I did complete it. You have, of course, the sandbox mode, where you get to just tinker around to your heart's content, although there are a couple of conditions. Initially, only Canada is unlocked, but there are various different other places where you can build dino parks, once you've unlocked them, of course. The only issue with sandbox mode, even though it's likely to be the mode that you're going to be playing the most over the long term, is that initially The only things available in sandbox mode are the things that you've already unlocked in other game modes, so at the start you're not going to get very far in sandbox. But don't worry, that's not the end of the world, because the other two game modes are very good. First there's challenge mode, where you have to race against the clock in various different territories, once you've unlocked them, to build a 5-star park, again starting in Canada, and you can see the kind of unlocks that you will achieve once you've 5-starred your Canadian park, and then can move on to a German park, a UK park, Northwest and Southwest USA parks. Chaos Theory is a lot of fun, because in Chaos Theory you basically build the parks that featured in Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And all of the technologies and facilities that you've unlocked in these modes then become available to you in sandbox mode, where you can just play around with dinosaurs to your heart's content. So let's take a look at some of these game modes, and what better place to start than the very beginning in Jurassic Park itself.
The mosquito, frozen in time for millions of years, and trapped within it. Well, that discovery would change our world. For a while, we thought that this was as close as we could get to dinosaurs. Turns out, we were wrong. Years of research into how to complete the DNA sequence for a dinosaur led us to this. Life unlike anything seen on this planet for 65 million years. Jurassic Park. We know how well that went, but what if someone like you had been there to temper some of that rampant hubris? For Jurassic Park to succeed, you're going to need to make sure it's safe for all your guests. This is the adventure of their lifetime. We don't want it to be their last.
We will need to prep the facility for the dinosaurs. Begin with a functioning visitor center and a science center. And remember that both must be connected to pathways. Oh, and power as well.
I can see that all is in good hands. Do carry on.
We'll keep you updated.
Splendid. Absolutely splendid.
So, the challenge in this game mode is that you have to get the original Jurassic Park ready to open to visitors. You have, if you look at the bottom right side of the screen, more than $21 million. Now that might seem like a lot of money. Well, it is a lot of money. But the budget is still going to be incredibly tight, because you have to pay for not just the construction but also the research of some incredibly expensive buildings, and the staff that are going to research these buildings don't come cheap either. And while all of that is going on, you've got no income because the park is not yet open. So the first order of business is a visitor centre, which is basically your park's administration building, and a science centre. Oh, and of course power for those two buildings as well, and then connect them with a path to the park entrance. And this is just getting started.
Jurassic Park has a top geneticist. Top. Dr. Henry Wu. I should expect that you'll be meeting him soon. That is, if you haven't already.
I'm settled in and ready to get started. So if we're to get the dinosaurs we want, we first need a hatchery. If you could construct one, then my staff and I can get to work.
Well, that's easier said than done. The first thing that I need to do is actually research a hatchery. And that's not going to be cheap either. Let's take a look at the research screen. So here we go. In order to get this researched, I'm going to have to assign from my initial crop of 4 scientists sufficient staff to cover the 2 requirements to actually research the hatchery, which are 2 genetics and 2 logistics points. Fortunately, I do have 1 scientist, Dr. Crowther, who has that covered and can do that herself. This is also going to cost me $50,000 and some time. And of course, while the clock's ticking, the running costs for the park entrance up here, the science centre, the backup generator, and the visitor centre, as well as the running costs of all the electric fences, they all keep draining away at my available funds. Yeah, that $21 million is not going to last very long. Anyway, research on the hatchery is almost done. In fact, it is done. So now I can build a hatchery. Let's go back to the research screen. Any upgrades to the hatchery are locked behind different requirements. One of them requires that I simply progress the story, so that will happen eventually. The other one requires that I raise the park rating to 1.5 stars. There are some efficiency upgrades here that I can research, however. That's going to reduce the various different costs of the things that you're going to need to do. Seems like a good idea because money is going to be tight. This is going to require staff with a combined total of 5 logistics points. And again, I can do that with one member of staff who's a bit of a logistics expert. So while that's busy researching, we're going to go ahead and place the hatchery. It wants me to place it here. And the hatchery is an utter bargain at a mere $250,000. So fortunately, there is a backup generator right next to it, but I'm going to need to connect it to the path network. The backup generator is the only power source that you have available at the beginning of each scenario, and they're kind of shit. I mean, they get the job done, but they run on diesel, and that shit is expensive, and you have to keep topping them up, otherwise they stop generating power. You can research better power generation facilities, but at the beginning at least, backup generators are all that you have. Right. Hatchery complete. This is where we synthesize and incubate dinosaur eggs. Now you start off with a couple of dinosaur genomes already researched.
Velociraptors. Yes. We're going to start with raptors. I know you may have concerns, but both John and I agree that they represent some of our most viable candidates. You'll need to synthesize their eggs using the available genome research I've provided. And of course, let me know the results the moment you have them.
Well, of course we're going to start with velociraptors. Alright. I'm just going to wait for this efficiency upgrade to complete. It's only going to be a few seconds, and this is going to save me money in the long term. At least I hope so. I realise that I am sitting here doing nothing waiting, and while I'm sitting here doing nothing waiting, money is being spent. But there we go, research completed. Unfortunately, none of the efficiency upgrades that I've just researched apply to the hatchery. We're going to go ahead in the meantime and synthesize some of these dinosaur eggs. Unfortunately, I only have 54% of the velociraptor genome, so that's not good. Equally not good is the fact that velociraptors have a 75% chance to develop the intolerant trait, which makes them way more aggressive than they need to be, even by velociraptor standards. Now, by messing around on this DNA splicing screen, you can introduce new characteristics, or introduce the chance that they'll inherit some new characteristics. At the beginning, the only one that you can dabble around with is mix in some sea turtle DNA to give them a chance of inheriting the long-lived trait. Do not do this at this point in this scenario, because every time you mess around with their DNA, it increases the cost of synthesizing the egg, and this first batch of eggs in this scenario is going to fail. Nevertheless, this is a step that you have to take in order to advance the plot. I require 5 genetics points, which I can do by assigning Crowther and Watson between them. They have that covered. Any excess will simply reduce the length of time it's going to take to synthesize those eggs. Now, velociraptors have a batch size of 6 when you synthesize eggs. So 6 eggs are going to be synthesized, but not all of them are going to be viable, especially not with only 54% of the genome unlocked. So here I'm trying to get ahead of the game by using the second available hatchery bay to synthesize more velociraptor eggs. The reason I'm doing this is because even though I'm synthesizing 6 eggs per hatchery batch, not all of those eggs are going to be viable, and I know what velociraptors are like from playing the original game. If they don't get to exist in a big enough pack, they get upset, break down fences, and start killing the staff. Unfortunately, once again, I'm getting slightly ahead of myself, because the first batch of 6 eggs that you synthesize in this scenario is destined to fail.
Our first synthesis was unsuccessful, which means that we clearly have room for improvement, but we don't stop. We get better. I've identified some areas in the synthesis process that need further research. See what you can learn at the Science Center and get back to me.
Or in other words, by trying to be clever and get ahead of the game, I've just wasted twice the amount of money that I needed to. Well, shit. The good news is that now improved synthesis is available for research, and this is going to increase the chances that I will successfully be able to synthesize some dinosaur eggs. So we're going to go ahead and stick a couple of scientists to work on that, and then we'll see how the second batch of 6 eggs is getting along. So of the 6, only 5 were viable. Unfortunately, of the 5 viable eggs, only 2 are really suitable for incubation, because 3 of the 5 have the intolerant trait, and 1 of them also has the aggressive trait, and we definitely don't want to breed raptors from those. So for a mere $900,000, we're going to go ahead and incubate the 2 eggs that we actually want. But that's also going to introduce another problem, because I know for a fact that 2 velociraptors does not constitute a pack. We're going to need a minimum of 3, and that means we're going to have to incubate more eggs. Unfortunately, I can't do that right now because Dr. Crowther, my scientist with the best genetics score, is getting a bit pissed off from being overworked, so we need to send them off on a very expensive vacation, and I can't do that until I've researched and built a staff centre. You're definitely going to want a staff centre. It not only provides opportunities for rest and training of your scientists, but it also increases the number of scientists that can be recruited, so I'm going to have to go ahead and research the staff centre. That's only going to cost $50,000, and then of course I'll have to build the staff centre, and God knows how much that's going to cost, and then once all that's done I can send Doc Crowther off on a holiday, which is going to cost about $76,000. Oh look, the backup power generator next to the hatchery is about to run out of diesel. We'll just spend another $400,000 topping that up, then wait for the staff centre to finish researching, then spend even more money building the staff centre, then send that ungrateful little cow, Dr. Crowther, off on an all-expenses-paid holiday, wait for her to come back, then get to work synthesizing even more velociraptor eggs and hope that we get enough viable eggs to breed a full pack of velociraptors with the 2 that are already sitting there in the hatchery waiting to be released. So let's check out the... Oh, you've got to be kidding. Of a batch of 6, 4 were viable, and all 4 have negative traits. So we're going to have to bin them and start again from scratch. And I'm wasting nearly $1 million every time I do this. Suddenly that nearly $22 million that I started with isn't looking quite so impressive. Anyway, eventually, let's check out the latest batch. Only 2 eggs survived. 1 of them at least is viable. So for the price of a mere $450,000, we're going to go ahead and incubate this egg. Fortunately, 3, because I still have 2 sitting in the hatchery pen waiting to be released. 3 velociraptors is the bare minimum required for a social pack. Any less, and these vicious little murder machines start tearing down fences, going on a rampage and slicing open all of the walking Happy Meals. And apparently, some people think that's a bad thing. Well, eventually, several $1 million later, we're ready. Let's hope this works. That music isn't reassuring me, you know.
Even with Dr. Wu's assurances, we'll want the proper response teams in place. I'm not saying anything will go wrong. I'm just erring on the side of caution. We can start with a ranger post, build one inside the velociraptor enclosure, then create a response facility. From there, assign a ranger patrol to the post.
Okay, a couple of things to mention here. First, the ranger post. This is a new feature. Basically, you plonk down a ranger post and then you assign a ranger team to it, and they can handle up to, I think, 5 different ranger posts, and they will basically drive around and check on the status of all the dinosaurs within the radius of the ranger posts that they've been assigned to. So, a couple of problems with that. First, you don't get to build the response facility that houses the ranger teams until after you've released the velociraptors. So there could be any kind of things wrong with those velociraptors, and right now I can't do anything about it. I can check on the status of the velociraptors, however, because they're probably not going to be completely happy with the enclosure that I've set up for them. So let's take a look at their comfort screen. Okay, they're happy with the population. 3 raptors is just enough, but they want more forest. Now, note that expanding sort of blue border. When you first release any kind of dinosaur into an enclosure, it first has to basically check out its territory, and that's what you're seeing happen there. The raptors are checking out the enclosure and they're claiming it as their territory, and within the blue borders, they're not happy with the amount of forest. Now, if I wait, eventually the raptors will basically claim the entire inside of the enclosure as their territory, and there's probably enough forest in there once they've fully explored it, but I'm not taking any chances because these are velociraptors, so I've put some more forest down. Another thing that they're not happy with is that there is no live prey here for them. I've put down carnivore feeders, but that's just dead meat. Velociraptors want to hunt. And wouldn't you believe it, live prey feeders are not available for research until after you release the velociraptors into their enclosure. So I'm going to need to get onto that.
We need the animals comfortable in their enclosures. The less they feel stress over their captivity, the more they'll begin to act within their expected behaviors. This is better for them and obviously better for us. Check on the raptors' welfare and remember, they're still getting habituated to their new enclosure.
Now, I only have 3 raptors, which doesn't leave me any margin for error if any of them get sick. So I'm going to breed some more. Also, because this is supposed to be a theme park, I'm going to need some way for the guests, when they do eventually start arriving, to actually see the animals. So that means putting down viewing galleries and connecting them to the path network. One further word of warning, by the way. I don't know if you just saw the pop-up. The Paleo Medical Facility has just been researched. This is another hideously expensive piece of research, which you don't need to do in this scenario, because at the point where it becomes necessary, you'll get it for free. Hey, where do you think you're going? Stop that, you little murderous bastard. No, back in your pen. You are kind of playing against the clock here because you have a limited budget and there's no income until the park opens, but trust me, slow down, take your time, and do everything when you're told to do it.
We need to get a paleo medical facility in place to ensure any sick or injured dinosaurs can be taken care of.
That's a good idea. We need to keep our dinosaurs healthy.
Now, remember, we're trying to recreate the original Jurassic Park here, and that park featured more than just velociraptors. There were many other dinosaur species there, which we're going to have to recreate here. Starting with triceratops, and we don't actually have a viable triceratops genome, so we're going to have to build an expedition centre now, and send archaeologist teams out to scavenge some triceratops fossils. This is also, of course, hideously expensive, and while we're hemorrhaging money on that, our happy little murder machines are busy happily trying to murder each other. And this is exactly why I wanted more than the bare minimum pack size of 3 raptors, because if one of them kills another, the 2 survivors are going to get very upset. And if one of them even injures the other, the 2 survivors are going to get very upset while the 3rd is being treated for injury. So I have 4 raptors in there now, and I've built the Paleo Medical Facility, so we're going to send the mobile vet unit out to check up on this injured raptor and see exactly what the problem is. And yep, surface wounds. It's got some nasty lacerations. It got clawed up by another raptor, so it's bleeding all over the place. Now we need to get that fixed. We don't want that becoming infected. Of course, it's a velociraptor. It's not going to make this easy. It keeps running away from us. We finally got close enough that we were able to medicate. Alright, job done. Notice how the vets get to drive around in an armoured van, but the rangers drive around in open-topped jeeps. Yeah. They do attack the jeeps, by the way. They tear the doors off and everything. Anyway, I need to get some triceratops released into this park before I run out of money. And of course, you can't release triceratops into the same enclosure as velociraptors, otherwise you end up with no triceratops and lots of very fat and well-fed velociraptors, so that means even more expense. Technically, I didn't need to build another hatchery. You can incubate the triceratops eggs in the same hatchery that I use for the velociraptors, and then you just airlift them from the hatchery pen into their own private enclosure. But, well, I've got millions. It'll be fine. Right, it's time. Let's see how the triceratops eggs are doing. I've got 2 batches of eggs synthesized. Let's check out the first batch. Fantastic. Only one egg survived the synthesis process, and it's got some negative traits in there that I really don't want to introduce. So we're going to have to discard all of those. And they did cost an absolute fortune. And now let's check out the... Okay, this isn't too bad. And they both inherited the long-lived trait, which is nice. And I only require 2 triceratops, but I'm not sure what the minimum herd size is for triceratops. I think it might be 3. The thing is, you don't know until you've bred and released them. They may require a minimum herd size of 3. So rather than take the chance and end up with a pair of very unhappy triceratops, I'm going to try to get some more eggs. I should only really need 1 more. Meanwhile, of course, the raptors are once again up to no good. What are these little bastards doing now? They're attacking the vets. I told you. Oh, and he's injured. He's got an ingrown claw. That's not something I can treat with a dart medication. So I'm going to have to get the ranger team out to sedate that raptor and then airlift it to the paleo medical facility. And this is why I wanted more than 3 raptors. Because with a minimum pack size of 3, if one's injured and I have to take it out of the enclosure for any reason, the other 2 are going to get extremely unhappy. So happy little murder machine number 1 is going to be undertaking some extremely expensive medical treatment. Now let's go and check up on the triceratops. Okay, ready for incubation. Fingers crossed. Well, I only needed 1, and 1's all I've got, so fair enough. Let's go ahead and incubate those eggs. I need a welfare rating of 6. There we go, that'll do. Right. The first 2 triceratops are still sitting in the holding pen waiting to be released, but I don't want to release them until I know for sure that they're going to have a minimum herd size requirement satisfied. Meanwhile, the raptors getting treated, and several $1 million later, the triceratops are finally ready for release. And the raptors are fighting again. That's all I need. Stop it! I can't afford for more than one of you to get injured at a time, you little assholes. Anyway. Old man Hammond is busy bleating on about the guests for the moment. I need to check up on the triceratops. I have to make sure that all of the dinosaurs in the park, the 3 triceratops, the 4 raptors, all have an average comfort rating of 80%. And I'm pretty sure, because I'm almost positive I haven't yet fully satisfied the environmental requirements of the triceratops, that yep, they're not happy. So they're missing ground fibre. They're still busy expanding their territory, but yeah, of course, they feed off ground vegetation, don't they? So we're going to put some forest leaf and fibre down. They're still expanding their territory. I mean, at the moment, they just haven't discovered all of the ground fibre that I'm laying down to feed them, but it should be okay. And they also appear to be happy with the number of animals in the herd. Oh, and the raptors are attacking a vehicle again. Seriously, they are more trouble than they are worth. At the moment, the triceratops are saying they don't have enough ground fibre and they don't have enough water, and you can quite clearly see there's more than enough water in their enclosure, but they're still expanding and exploring their territory. Once that blue border has filled the entire enclosure, they'll be fine. I've put down more than enough ground fibre and there's more than enough water there. So the triceratops, at least, should be happy. If I can just get the raptors to calm down for a minute, they should be happy too.
Dr. Wu and Dr. Hammond would both like us to increase the diversity of animal species in the park, and then construct a ride where they can be viewed. Make it something impressive.
Well, the raptors are busy mauling each other again. Believe it or not, this is what raptors do when they're 100% content. Right? If they weren't content, they'd be tearing down the fences. In the meantime, I have to increase the total dinosaur species in the park to 4, so I'm halfway there. I have to build a functioning park tour, and I have to ensure that at least 5 dinosaurs are visible to park viewers at all times. So that means building more enclosures, sending out more expeditions to gather more dinosaur fossils to extract more dinosaur DNA to breed at least 2 new species, and then getting some kind of ride down to allow the guests, when we can finally open this place up for business, to actually get around and see the dinosaurs that they're paying top dollar to see. All the while hoping that nothing else goes wrong and the raptors will stop trying to kill each other. No part of this is going to be cheap. And so, just as I was introducing my 4th and final species into the park, I ran out of money and failed to start. So I started again, and this time I made it with $5 million to spare.
We are mere moments away from opening Jurassic Park. And
Hooray!
I now hear word we have sick dinosaurs? Someone offer me assurances.
Of course. We're on top of it, Dr. Hammond. We're sending out a mobile veterinary unit from the Paleo Medical Facility even as we speak. Aren't we, Lily?
Yes, of course. They'll get us a diagnosis, and then we can develop a cure for the triceratops.
Perfect. We have a plan. That means everything is completely under control. This doesn't even qualify as a minor setback.
Considering all of the obstacles that have been placed before us getting Jurassic Park to this point, I'm inclined to agree. Whatever it takes, see to it. And Henry, let me know the moment this has been resolved.
Understood.
Lily, do carry on.
Thank you. As Dr. Wu said, everything is under control.
Fantastic. Actually, you know, this does tie in with the events of the first Jurassic Park movie. Because I don't know if you remember, but the first time we saw Triceratops in Jurassic Park, it was sick and suffering from ivy poisoning. And that is exactly what is wrong with these Triceratops. The thing about diseases in Jurassic World 2, though, is that while you can research cures for them, and you can in fact research inoculations so that none of your populations ever suffer from the same disease again, they first have to contract that disease in order for you to be able to formulate a cure. But $2 million later, with the cure researched, I can finally medicate the sick Triceratops and hopefully get this park open for business and start making an actual profit before I run out of money again. And so, through the application of very expensive drugs, rather than just, getting rid of all of the ivy in the park, no further sources of ivy poisoning remain, and we can finally open this park for business.
I'm not sure which is more miraculous. Bringing the dinosaurs back from extinction, or finally opening Jurassic Park to the public.
Yet here we are.
Well done, John.
A tribute to us all. And to the power of dreams.
And to the public's ongoing fascination with these prehistoric animals.
May it never die.
Truer words, Miss Halford. And now, I want to watch the only thing more interesting than the dinosaurs.
What might that be?
Observing people seeing dinosaurs for the first time.
Right, and now that budget Richard Attenborough has finally shut up, I suppose I should probably open the park. How do I do that? Oh yeah, that's right. The visitor's entrance. Hey, scenario complete.
Oh, and having an ice cream. Come on then. I'm buying. Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Except, no, of course it's not complete. We have, in fact, barely started. I'll tell you what, you certainly get your money's worth out of this game, if nothing else. But, yeah, I'm starting to lose the will to live now, so that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you do get this game, I do hope you enjoy the game too, because it is very, very good. And of course, have a great weekend, take care, and I'll catch you next time.